The Cambodian Genocide, a brief overview for high school students. This video is made possible by the California Department of Education as part of the Content, Literacy, Inquiry, and Citizenship Project, which provides professional learning and resources to help educators and school administrators successfully implement California's History Social Science Framework. This video was developed in partnership with the Sacramento County Office of Education and the Genocide Education Project. Please be aware that this video deals with a sensitive topic. Accounts of violence against groups and individuals will be discussed, and graphic images will be included. The intended audience for this video is high school students and their educators. Viewer discretion is advised. The most respectful and scholarly materials were consulted in the development of this video. This video is not intended to provide a complete account of genocide, but rather serve as a place to begin a larger conversation about this topic. Welcome to this brief overview of the Cambodian Genocide. I'm Frank Peasy from the Sacramento County Office of Education, and today I will share with you the definition of genocide and a short history of the Cambodian Genocide. You will also hear from a survivor of the Cambodian Genocide, as California has a large population of Southeast Asians whose experiences are connected and interconnected to this history. When you think of the word genocide, what comes to mind? Often, people think of the Holocaust in World War II. While this is probably the most well-known example of genocide, it is far from the only one. And those before and after carry important lessons we can learn from. Genocide is truly and unfortunately a worldwide phenomenon. In fact, genocide has happened on every continent except Antarctica. The word genocide is made up of the Greek prefix genos, meaning race or tribe, and the Latin suffix cide, meaning killing. Genocide is an internationally recognized crime. Acts of genocide are committed with the intent to destroy, in whole or in part, a national, ethnic, racial, or religious group. The definition of genocide was created by Raphael Lemkin, a Polish Jewish lawyer who lost 49 relatives to the Holocaust and fought tirelessly to have the term adopted by the United Nations. As shown here, the Convention for the Prevention of Genocide was signed during a ceremony at the UN in 1948. There are 5 categories of genocide according to the United Nations. 1. Killing members of the group. 2. Causing serious bodily or mental harm to members of the group. 3. Deliberately inflicting on the group conditions of life calculated to bring about its physical destruction in whole or part. 4. Imposing measures intended to prevent births within the group. And 5. Forcibly transferring children of the group to another group. To sum it up, if there is intent to destroy a specific group of people using any of the ways listed, then a genocide has occurred. It's important to study the history of a region in order to fully understand complex events like genocide. The process towards genocide begins when a group in a society is targeted for being different and stripped of equal rights. This process often continues with efforts to separate the group from the rest of society, as happened in Nazi concentration camps in World War II. One concentration and extermination camp, Auschwitz, is pictured here, with its barbed wire fences and buildings. So now let's examine the Cambodian genocide. Cambodia is a country in Southeast Asia. It borders Thailand, Laos, and Vietnam. Cambodia has a rich history that dates centuries even before the Grand Kingdom Angkor in the year 802, with deep religious roots in Hinduism and Buddhism. The majority of Cambodia's population identifies as Khmer, an ethnic group with its own language and culture. Cambodia was a French colony for nearly a century until 1953, when it became the Kingdom of Cambodia. Norodom Sihanouk ruled the country following independence, a period which coincided with the Vietnam War. These images show the ornately decorated royal palace in Phnom Penh and Norodom Sihanouk wearing coronation clothes. Southeast Asia was an important region to both the United States and the USSR during the Cold War. During these early years of independence from France, Vietnamese refugees flooded into Cambodia during the Vietnam War. U.S. bombing campaigns killed 50,000 to 150,000 Cambodians, paving the way for the government to be overthrown. As shown in this image, many Vietnamese civilians fled the Viet Cong during heavy street fighting in the city of Hue. The Viet Cong was a revolutionary group that supported the North Vietnamese during the Vietnam War. Attempting to regain power after he was overthrown by a pro-Western military coup in 1970, Sihanouk encouraged his followers to revolt. Even after the genocide, the Vietnamese lived in refugee camps with little resources. The communist Khmer Rouge, led by Pol Pot, responded by taking up arms against the government, starting a civil war. The anger resulting from the bombing by the Americans and the mistrust of the Vietnamese helped Khmer Rouge forces to grow, and with over 700,000 members, the group successfully took over Cambodia in April 1975. As seen in this image, youth between the ages of 10 to 17 were brainwashed and used for military service on behalf of the Khmer Rouge. Within hours of invading the capital, Phnom Penh, the Khmer Rouge began removing people from their homes. The people were loaded into trucks to be transported to the countryside. This was the beginning of the destruction of the cities and the people who lived there. The Khmer Rouge began instituting discriminatory policies in an effort to create its new communist paradise called Democratic Kampuchea. Pre Vang province, located in southern Cambodia, was one of the first areas captured by the Khmer Rouge. During this period, thousands of residents died from famine. Pol Pot, the communist leader of the Khmer Rouge, was also known as Brother Number One. He was the leading perpetrator of the genocide and is shown here at a government meeting in 1978. The Khmer Rouge divided society into two groups: old people and new people. This image represents the old people, who were peasants that lived in the countryside. This group was idolized and considered trustworthy by the Khmer Rouge. New people included nearly everyone else: city dwellers, intellectuals, people of non-Khmer ethnicities, and religious people, including Buddhist monks who the Khmer Rouge identified by their robes. Even people who wore glasses or spoke a second language were targeted, as the regime believed them to be educated or have connections outside of Cambodia. The new people were banned from speaking minority languages and practicing religious customs under the regime. The Khmer Rouge targeted this group for genocide. These official photographs of new people being admitted into a detention center show that they were of all ages, from older adults to young children. In addition to enslaving its own population, the Khmer Rouge created prisons for the torture and killing of perceived enemies, and even publicly marked some people for death. Just as Jews and others were forced to wear identifying symbols during Hitler's Holocaust decades before, people in the Eastern Zone had to wear a blue check scarf, which meant they would be killed. The Khmer Rouge targeted anyone who wasn't designated an ethnic Khmer peasant. They considered everyone perceived to be unsupportive of the regime's policies and actions to be an enemy. This former high school in Phnom Penh became Security Prison 21, known as S21. It was the nerve center of the Khmer Rouge secret police, where perceived enemies of the state were imprisoned. The mother and baby pictured here were among the victims imprisoned. Today, S21 is the Tuol Sleng Museum of Genocide. To ensure that this time in Cambodia's history is not forgotten, this museum is open to the public as a reminder for all who visit. Upon taking power, the Khmer Rouge systematically emptied urban areas, separating families and forcing people into the countryside. The new people received far harsher treatment than the old people. Professionals, including teachers, doctors, and former government officials, were murdered immediately. With these people gone, there was no one left to represent or advocate for those who remained. This image portrays the National Bank of Cambodia in Phnom Penh, demolished in 1975 by the new Khmer Rouge government as a symbol of their rejection of capitalism. Americans and other foreign observers were immediately evacuated when Phnom Penh fell. Dith Pran, shown here, was a Cambodian journalist who worked with the New York Times. He could not leave Cambodia with the other reporters and was sent to a labor camp. He survived 4 years of harsh labor and eventually escaped to Thailand. He was instrumental in raising awareness about the Cambodian genocide and was the subject of the motion picture, The Killing Fields. The Khmer Rouge closed schools, factories, and hospitals, and banned radios and music. Some of the sites became detention centers, like Security Prison 21. This photo shows just a few of the 14,000 people who were imprisoned there. Only 7 people survived. The remaining population was forced to perform slave labor in the killing fields or communal farms where many died from exhaustion, malnutrition, and disease. These deaths were the direct result of the harsh conditions imposed by the Khmer Rouge. This sign, posted in a killing field near Phnom Penh, reads, "Please do not walk through the mass grave." The pile of skulls is from the same area. The Khmer Rouge targeted religious groups. It murdered 97% of Buddhist monks, 8,000 Christians, and half of the Cham Muslim population. Most prisoners were photographed, and the photographs still exist today. Many are on exhibit at the Tuol Sleng Genocide Museum. Pictured is Buddhist monk Vun Van, second from left, a 56-year-old survivor of the Cambodian genocide. The genocide ended in early 1979 when the Vietnamese army invaded Cambodia and defeated the Khmer Rouge, as shown in this image. By the end of the genocide, the Khmer Rouge killed approximately 1.7 million to 2.2 million new people. After the genocide, piles of human bones were left in the detention centers and in the killing fields. To get a better understanding of the Cambodian genocide, let's hear from Monta Chia Whitlock, who experienced it firsthand and will share her memories. What was your most compelling memory as a child living through the Cambodian genocide?
I was 9 years old. I remember just while sleeping at nighttime. I would hear the dog bark before, but it didn't really bother us. But the one night, the most memorable part was my mother hearing the dog bark coming closer and closer to the house where we were living. And she woke us up, tapping on our feet, tapping us and shaking us and telling us to get out of the beds. We need to get out downstairs. And so we all got up with hardly any clothes on, walked downstairs quietly with a little lantern, and just kind of followed her all the way to a river. And when we got the river, my uncle helped us cross the river because my father was not there that night. So we had to put our little arms over his neck and hold it tight. And he would swim to the river to get us to the other side, across the river. And then he would keep on doing that to all of us. There's 5 as children, my mother. I think my mother knew how to swim her way, but I remember as kids just holding onto his neck. And we made it to the other side of the river safely. And then we remember waking up. I don't remember where we sleep really, probably in the woods somewhere. We woke up, we would hear noises and people would start talking. There was lots of talking, lots of screaming, lots of yelling, lots of just hollering out sadness. And you would also see smokes because of the fire the night before, something happened, whatever it was, the neighborhood was on fire. And people would be screaming because their father's gone or their husband's gone. People were disappearing at night. I guess how I understood it was we call it Khmer Kahom. It's like Khmer Kahom is a Khmer Rouge. They would come and would take your family member in the middle of the night. And that's how you end up not knowing who's next to you that's not there next morning. And that's the reason why the dogs are barking, is when people intrude into your space, you can, you'll know that someone's there, doesn't belong there. Dogs don't bark if they really know you. It's interesting. That's why till this day, I never really liked having dogs. I don't really, it's nothing to do with the dog. I just don't like the way they bark when someone's around and someone's near. It always triggers that memory. It never leaves me because there was nothing pleasant about dog barking.
What was it like to be airlifted out of Cambodia?
Rushing to the helicopter, just running it through from the building all the way to the helicopter. Again, it's almost like the bombing's going on at the same time. We're going to helicopter. Everything was just a loud scream, yell, noisy, rush, rush, rush. Always in a rush. It's never not a rush. And then it's like sardines. We packed like sardines inside the helicopters. There's no seat individually. There was seats individually, but no longer. Now everybody's on top of each other's lap, whatever, just to get it. There's no, I don't know, they do have a limit though, I think, for the weight. And then we flew off into the air. That's the part, like, when the airplane landed, I felt like you actually, your whole heart just kind of lift up. You're no longer on the ground. That's really evil to you. You're like, oh, like a bird just fly, but you think you're a lot safer now than being on the ground.
Cambodia today still suffers effects from the genocide. Its industry, education systems, healthcare, and commerce were essentially destroyed by the Khmer Rouge, so the country faced many difficulties as it rebuilt in the wake of the atrocities. This image represents the extreme poverty seen in Phnom Penh today. In 2018, a United Nations-backed international court found 2 former Khmer Rouge leaders guilty of genocide. The tribunals took place at the Extraordinary Chambers in the Courts of Cambodia in Phnom Penh. The ruling has been the only genocide conviction to date for the atrocities in Cambodia. Pol Pot died in 1998 of heart failure while under house arrest after a trial in 1997. The trial outcome did not address that Pol Pot was responsible for committing genocide, but instead convicted him of a lesser offense: crimes against humanity. So, what's the difference? Well, it may be a finer legal point. Crimes against humanity focuses on the mass killing of large numbers of individuals. Genocide has a different focus. Genocide is defined as the intended destruction of a group of people, their culture, their language, their history, their very existence. Genocide still plagues societies around the globe today. After learning about this genocide, consider the following questions. What are the short and long-term consequences for individuals and groups who do not have equal rights under the government of their country of residence? What is the responsibility of countries to intercede in stopping mass violence in other areas of the world? What is the responsibility of individuals to intervene on behalf of people facing danger within and outside of their own countries? While this was a brief account of a very complex set of circumstances in history, it's important to understand that the unjust use of power and the use of violence to achieve one's goals should never be tolerated. As individuals, we have an obligation to call out injustice when we see it. As a group, we have the responsibility to do all we can to ensure that genocides like the one presented here never happen again. Thank you to the Genocide Education Project for their content expertise in developing this video. The citations for the images used in this video can be found on the California History Social Science website located at www.californiahss.org. There, you can also find more resources on this and other genocides around the world. Technical production of this video was performed by the Sacramento County Office of Education's Internet and Media Services Department.